Hello and welcome to A Novel Idea, the show where we interview authors. My name is Noelle Boc. I am your host, and today we are welcoming Raj Tawney. Welcome, Raj. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me, Noelle. It's an honor to be here.
All right. Officially, you have a brand new book, All Mixed Up, that is coming out. It's a middle grade book. You're also having the honor of being our first children's book that we're having on the show.
Oh my God, I have so many honors.
I
but
know.
Speaking of honors, isn't there some, what's that sitting next to the book right there? It's very shiny.
Oh, this old thing. This is just, I won a golden onion for the DCAT Host of the Year. That's all. It's nothing big.
Wow, that's impressive. That's huge. That's huge. That's a
you.
testament to all your
much.
hard work and the whole team's work.
It is, and I have a fantastic team here. So yeah, it was a nice surprise and a nice honor.
Oh, well, congratulations.
Oh, thank you so much. We'll just have a happy fest here.
Oh, we're just celebrating everything today.
Yeah, let's celebrate all the things.
Yeah.
So you did have one book before this book, which is called Colorful Palette, which was a memoir.
Yes.
About your life, which I also read.
I love your support.
Yes.
You're the best.
You're the best.
We're winning.
We're just winning together. So it was interesting for me, having read the memoir, to then read All Mixed Up, because obviously there's parallels, right, and things that you've taken from your personal life to create this book. So how did this one come about?
Oh, that's a long journey, but you know, it's been living in my head since I'm a kid. I mean, this is the kind of story I used to just toy around with in my imagination and write little notes about it and write little short stories, but I dare wouldn't tell anybody about it because I was too shy about my writing, you know. I didn't really start showing anybody my writing until about 30 years old. I was really self-conscious. I didn't think I was a good writer. I wasn't a great student, but I was always like a hustler. I was always really passionate in my creative pursuits. So when I first showed my first essay, it was a personal essay. Some friends I showed really said, you should keep doing this. So I got that essay published in a local newspaper, and then I just kept going. And you know, as a creative, you're like obsessive, so you just keep going and going and going. So then finally, about a few years ago, I started writing All Mixed Up, and it was so exciting to climb back into that younger version of myself, you know, because we're all kind of kids in our heads still.
Of course we are. And so, had you been working on Colorful Palette at the same time, or were they very separate projects?
It's hard to explain because Colorful Palette, yeah, I was basically working on the same time. Colorful Palette was getting shopped around by an agent. It didn't sell right away. The agent kind of gave up faith, and so I kind of parted ways with the agent. It's a crazy story. I'm still friendly with the agent, but I just felt like if they're not going to believe in me, I might as well just, you know, go off on my own and find a smaller book deal and, you know, let people believe in me and find a great team. So I shopped around myself. I found a home with Fordham University Press, and I got a few offers at that time for Colorful Palette. And then they championed the book. They were so supportive. They still are. And then as I was simultaneously writing this other manuscript, when the other book wasn't selling, I had a second manuscript, already in the works. So once I finished that, I said, well, let me take it around to whoever will let me send it to them. So I got some further interest from a few publishers, and I went with Paw Prints because I really love what Bobby Bensour and Amandeep Kochhar are about and what they're championing. Diverse voices, diverse stories. It was a perfect match. So yeah, I have two publishing families now, and I'm super grateful for that.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
So this book, All Mixed Up, takes place like the year after 9/11 happens. And when I was reading the book, I didn't realize that it was kind of historical fiction. I guess.
Yeah,
now,
it's weird, right?
It's weird that that's historical fiction, but
yeah.
That's really, it's a historical fiction title. And so it really dives into that piece of where our American psyche was at the time of the distrust, right, of anyone that was basically had brown skin and looked like they possibly could be from the Middle East, right?
Yeah.
Right? Like
no,
you're
absolutely
like
right.
And I wasn't expecting that to be a theme in there, but I'm glad it is a theme. to go through. And so are you seeing parallels, you feel like, with now? Do you, like, when you were writing this book, were you thinking about now, like what we're seeing in the country now?
Yeah, I mean, I am consciously aware of what's going on in the country, and it's funny because, like, you know, you thought after getting to that period of 9/11 and then you know the era of President Obama that we were making all this progress, but I don't know, you know, it's hard to say whether or not, you know, we're going backwards or forwards in a given day, week, month, or year at this point.
Right.
But I felt like, you know, 9/11 now is an important time that a lot of young people were not even alive for.
Right.
You know, the audience I'm speaking to were born years after that period, but we lived through it, you know, as adults now. I was an adolescent when 9/11 happened, and I had so many different emotions at the time, especially growing up right outside of New York City, you know, and I
Right.
think there was a lot of this kind of patriotic fervor going on, where, you know, there was an idea of what America looked and felt like, and I felt like a lot of people like me, my family, and people I knew were kind of left out of that mold. So I feel like we've heard a lot of really important perspectives from that period, but there's not a lot of kind of brownish perspectives from that period. But also, because it's such a boyhood story, and I was young at the time, even in the darkest periods, you know, kids find a way to laugh and be playful and still be kids. So how do you kind of be kids and then deal with all of the news swirling around your head? And I feel like kids are going through that right now. You know, I guess history is cyclical in so many ways. So, yeah, I just really wanted to kind of open up that dialogue for kids that may be thinking about those kind of heavy topics.
Yeah, and you know, the immigration topic is, as we know right now, is a hot button topic, but it always has been. Like, I think it's one of those things as you look over time, like, you know, if you're looking centuries ago, like the Irish, right, like came in, and that was a problem that no one wanted the Irish here, and Italians used to be considered non-white, you know,
Yep.
when they were first here, you know, as well, and then people become assimilated into the culture, and then no one thinks about that now, right? There's an Irish pub on every corner, and an Italian restaurant on the opposite side, you know. But you know, that was a point in time where they were immigrants to this country. A lot of people from that country were coming over, and they were also, you know, looked down upon or shunned, and you know, it feels like that's just another cycle that we go through, for sure.
It's so true, you know, and like I love studying American history. And, you know, being part Italian as well, I've studied the plight of Italian Americans in this country. And it's really, you know, as you said, it's, you know, they weren't considered white, and they were considered so low on the totem pole of, you know, of our society. You know, and it's funny because our country is one giant experiment going on for, you know, hundreds of years now. I mean, like, even studying Al Smith, who ran for president in 1928, and he was Irish American from New York. I mean, and they did, and you know, the KKK and other heavy right wing groups were doing everything they can to kind of make him seem like, you know, this you know, lower than scum person. You know, he was never going to register with the rest of the American public. But so I see signs of progress in the last 100 years, but there's still a lot of work to be done.
Yeah, and so I thought it was really valuable that, you know, you put that topic, you know, mixed into the book, because it is just something that we always have we're struggling with in this country. And kids, you know, like they see, like in their own schools, right, they have kids who come here from other places that are new. And one of the things I really love about your book, I'm trying not to give things away too much, but you know, is that, you know, you have a kid, Jazz, right, who comes in and he's from somewhere else and immediately, you know, attaches himself to the Kamal character, and just, it's like, and it's great, right? Like, it's just nice. He's like, here's somebody, he's just another kid who's looking for a friend and somewhere to belong, and that's nothing about him that has to be any different than any other kid who's just looking to belong and be a friend. And so I thought that was like such a great theme.
No, I really appreciate that. That means a lot that you caught on to that. I mean, Jazz is actually inspired by a real life friend of mine who I've known since kindergarten.
Oh, wow.
And his nickname was Jazz. His name is Ujas, and he's Indian American, but he was and is still such a character. He's a doctor now and has a family, but that spirit that Ujas had, because his family came from India, because a lot of people have been criticizing the character of Apu on The Simpsons in recent years, the Indian convenience store character. But we loved him because he was the first guy who had an Indian accent that spoke like our fathers. And we identified with him, even though a lot of now Indian Americans are saying that, it was wrong for Hank Azaria, who's a white actor, to voice him. But for us, he was an important figure in our life. We saw ourselves in him.
Right.
So there's so much to debate about these kinds of topics, but I felt like if I was going to write something, I needed it to come from me. I needed it to be as genuine as possible to my life and my perspective.
And as you already mentioned, so the character Kamal in the books does get bullied quite a bit. The book starts with a bullying incident. Now, did you feel, and you're just referencing that you did get bullied, did you take any of those incidents from the book, like directly from your life?
Oh, yeah. And maybe some of the bullies' names also had those names, you don't forget people who have been cruel to you, especially when you were a kid, It stays with you. It just does. I hate to say it because you think a lot of us will have moved on from it, but I think, that insecurity, it lasts, and you don't forget it. And that's why there's so many movies about, being made about teenagers and childhood because it resonates always with adults, right? Don't you agree?
Yeah. No, I was at. I've been to all of 2 high school reunions, and at the second high school reunion, I ended up talking to a guy who used to tease me on the bus, and and so I was like, hey, and like basically, I did not want to talk to him because my feelings about him are like, you used to be kind of mean to me, and so I just said to him, I was like, hey, I said his name, and then I said, you were kind of mean to me, like back. I just couldn't help it, and he was like, oh, and he just kind of had a like, I kind of liked you, but I didn't know how to show it, and I'm like, come on, you were in like 9th grade, and you didn't whatever. But he was very apologetic, and he like went and bought me a drink, and whatever. He's like, am I forgiven? I was like, no, and it's not. But because he's not forgiven. He's not forgiven. Like I remember that as a very negative experience, and like he in my life is a negative person. So, as you say, like you don't forget. The people, and it was nothing. He wasn't super awful to me, but it was enough for me to be like, this is how I remember you, and it's not in a good way, and like you can't just come up to me now and say, like, oh, I'm like, no, actually, no. And, I've never seen that person again since that time. It's not somebody I interact with in any way.
Right.
So, it didn't hurt me any to have to.
Wow. Well, maybe, did you get any closure from that experience, maybe?
I think I felt good that I was able to say something, because I was also kind of a shyer. I was more outgoing as a younger elementary student, and then like I hit like that middle school, high school age, and I kind of like became a shyer. Like no one believes this now, but I did become very shy, and it took me until like my senior year before I became more outgoing.
Right.
Again, like and kind of found my voice. So it was nice to like have a place, like to be able to like use my voice against somebody who I wasn't comfortable using my voice, earlier and when I was younger with him. So
isn't it interesting? Like people will say to you, or I don't know, to me at least, they'll say, I can't imagine you're shy, or I can't imagine you're this or that because you're such a big personality. But they don't realize, it's like a lot of it's just turning it on.
Right.
Right at the right moments when you need to turn it on. But the rest of your day is you're pretty quiet into yourself, and that's how I feel at least. Do you feel that way too?
I have changed a lot. Like so I live a lot more out loud than just in general now than I ever used to. So like I definitely went through a big introvert period, but I need, as much as I like being with people, I need the time to myself, right. As well.
Yeah.
So we're going to take a quick break and have you read something from your book, and then we'll be right back.
Sounds great.
All right.
I grew up being told that I'm special. Parents love to tell us that. Really, my parents are just from different worlds. My dad is from India. My mom's mom is from Puerto Rico. And my mom's dad came here from Italy. I hear all about it at various family gatherings and parties I get dragged to. Each group is so different from the other. Different clothes to wear, songs to remember, gods to obey, languages to pretend to know, dances to avoid, and the food, well, the food is the only great part. I get to taste flavors from all over the globe. Lasagna for the Italians, arroz con pollo for the Puerto Ricans, palak paneer for the Indians. My taste buds are never lonely, even though I am most of the time. When I'm at school or with my family, I don't see myself in anyone. Period. I'm an olive skin, bushy eyebrowed, broken mop hair, not so skinny boy with a first and last name that nobody can seem to pronounce, let alone figure out where I'm from. Kamal Rao, American citizen, too other for the town, and too American for my brown cousins. You're so unique, honey, my mom frequently reminds me. She married my dad after they met in college. His parents sent him here to America to receive a good education. But I don't think they thought that he'd fall in love. Gross. Isn't that selfish of my parents? What did they think their child would look like? Why don't adults consider these things before they get married and have kids? New York City might be the melting pot of the world, but it's an hour away. The town we live in feels so bland, as if nobody's ancestors tasted their own stew when they got to Ellis Island. I always feel like the odd one out, like a weirdly twisted pretzel in a bag of perfect knots.
I obviously, since I read your memoir as well, so I know a lot of that you read is taken from your own life as well. So, and you talk about that loneliness feeling and that standout. So did you? So I know you just mentioned a friend that you had that was someone of color that was in school. Did you have many other kids of color? I know in the book you mentioned like a small group. Was that your representation in your school as well, or just?
Yeah, I think there were some kids of color sprinkled throughout. You know, I think in the 80s and 90s in New York, at least in Long Island, as families were starting to kind of climb on the economic scale, they were afforded to come out to Long Island more and buy houses and kind of grow their communities out there. Like the Indian American community, for example, a lot of those original immigrants came in the mid-70s. You know, a lot of them were college educated or they came here for education. So they already kind of had some more economic opportunities before they even arrived here. So my dad came from middle class, and by the time he came here in 1976, he was here for school. And my mother, grew up with not a lot of money in the Bronx, Puerto Rican and Italian. So all of these communities were finding their way out to the suburbs. And so even though the suburbs were still mostly white and largely Irish and Italian, which were kind of now considered just white, even though we talked about that there's so much more to that history, and Jewish as well, and Catholic. So, sprinkled throughout, you'd start to see some Korean American families, some Indian American families, some African American families, Latin American communities growing. So I was kind of at the beginning of stages of that, and I want to believe that it's getting more diverse, but I'm really not sure yet if it's really happening, yet. So I don't know.
Yeah, in the book as well, so there's definitely some racist incidents, right? Like where they're saying things that are obviously offensive to me now, reading it, right?
Yeah.
Did you feel like you experienced quite a bit of racism and stereotyping, like when you were in school?
Yeah, I think about this a lot. I think this idea of racism and prejudice, they're not always in these big cinematic moments that are, as we see in movies and television. A lot of them are these a million microaggressions that create a mound of little experiences throughout your life. Like before I came here to be on your show, I had a really scruffy facial hair this morning. I was really scraggly. And in previous experiences, if I had that and I wore, say, a hooded sweatshirt or a track jacket and I was pumping gas, a lot of folks would mistake me for the gas station attendant.
No.
I mean, it's happened so many times, and to the point where it's just laughable now. Where people think I'm like, a staff member at a menial job. Like, for example, I was at a very important, notable book conference this year. I won't tell you which one, but I was dressed up and like everyone else was, but folks kept mistaking me for the hotel staff where the conference is being held. Maybe because I'm young, or I did resemble a lot of the workers there, and I think there's nothing wrong in those jobs. Those jobs are great. But it's just so funny, the disconnect that people have. They see with their eyes, just like children do. And they're taught to believe that certain people just are meant to be in certain positions and areas of life. They couldn't possibly be one of them, or so those kind of little things that I experience. Yeah, it still happens.
It's still happening, so you're still experiencing like those microaggressions.
But again, it's laughable at this point.
Right. Well, you've learned to deal with them probably better than when you were a kid, right? Like, so you've absorbed them, and now you're like, all right, I know what these are. Which doesn't make them okay, but that's we're trying as a society to hopefully get a little better.
You have to also,
I mean,
I'm a pretty forgiving person too. I'm compassionate. I'm not a crusader. I just want to open minds up and open dialogue. That's really my goal. Just to make things a little bit better.
Now, one of the other things I wanted to talk about with this book is, and I don't want to give it away for kids or anybody who's going to read it, but so there's a big secret about jazz that comes out, late in the book. And one of the things that I find very interesting, I was trying to think through, like, what would I do in the same situation, is that he ends up trusting Kamal with this information, right, the secret. And Kamal has to make some decisions of like who he can trust or not trust with that secret. And he ends up telling some lies earlier on to kind of protect Jazz. Now, I don't know if you were ever put in this situation in your life as a kid or not, but how did you kind of work through that in your head for this book?
A lot of it again was climbing back into my younger self. And when you're a kid, I think you'll fib and do things to protect your friends. Especially when you make those friends that you really care about. I mean, it's like this developmental period where you're making those really difficult decisions about, do you stand up for someone that you care about? Do you confide in someone? Does someone confide in you? These really important moments in your life. So obviously I put some heavy topics in there, but I think the ultimate goal was to kind of teach young readers that, about the basic elements of just, friendship and relationships and how we see each other in society. So it was challenging to try to figure out what I was going to have Kamal do in terms of his decision making, and would he protect this friend, and would he confide in his parents, and as you see, like, the adults are these kind of looming figures in the book, throughout the book, that are they trustworthy or not? That's kind of the constant question I'm always asking. Do kids trust each other more than they trust adults, and should adults be trustworthy all the time? I think that answer is up to each person.
And it is, and I did like, because it's easy to fall into tropes of just like saying, okay, this adult is this way, right, like the stereotypical way. And I thought you did a really good job of, especially with your parents in the book, Kamal's parents, Kamal's parents in the book, putting you guys together, of recognizing, like, when Kamal challenges them and their perceptions, that he gets to have a peek into what motivators they have and feelings they have, and like why they might be thinking and feeling the way they are. And I thought that was like a really good thing, because you especially when you're a kid, right, like your parents are just your parents. They're like a mystery, right? And all these things that you don't know about them, and you don't think about them, either. They're just people that exist. And I've done a lot of thoughtfulness in my own life of looking at my family, even just my siblings too, where they're just your siblings. They're just there. They trigger you, whatever they do.
Oh yeah, tell me about it.
And then you're an adult, and you can look back and say like, oh hey, they were this way for this reason, or like their experience of our family was different than my experience of, you know, the family, whatever. So I thought that it was really nice in the book, you know, at the end, that you got to have a peek at what the adults, not all the adults, but you know, what the adults that were important to Kamal, what their experiences might have been a little bit, and could inform like why they were saying the things they were doing, or all that stuff.
Yeah, I appreciate you catching on to that. I think, you know, parents, when you're a kid, parents are, they are a mystery, and you don't know why they're making the decisions they're making. It's mostly to protect you and in your best interest. But they are, you know, as you get older, you realize they are just people, and they're flawed. Like, you're flawed, I'm flawed, and you have to kind of come to a compromise and learn forgiveness with one another, because that's important to build that relationship. I love my parents, but you know, they're quirky and flawed, and I was embarrassed of them for periods of my life when I was younger, like we all get embarrassed of our parents. But you come to like, sorry, my phone's buzzing.
Yeah, that's okay.
But you come to accept them and appreciate them for all of their quirks and flaws, and know that, as you know, if you have a good relationship with them, that they are really truly looking out for your best interest, and that the decisions they make are based on their own life experiences, you know, that they've been through. I have this, you know, I remember when I was a kid, like, we'd always, when we'd go into New York City or a big city, you know, my mom and grandma would always be like, oh, watch your purse, or grab your purse.
Right.
And as I got older, I'm like, what do you keep doing that for? No one's going to rob you. But, well, I'm probably wrong about that. But I realized also they grew up, you know, in the 50s, 60s, 70s, in a time where, you know, carjackings were always happening. And so you're a product of your environment, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, for sure. So what are you working on right now?
I have an idea. I have an idea for a YA novel.
Ooh.
And it's definitely influenced by my life in South Florida, and all the diversity happening down there. You know, it's really rich in diversity, but it also has its problems as well, just like any other city or state. But yeah, I'm excited about this idea. So I don't want to say anything yet because I'm still tinkering with it. But you know, maybe I'll be back in a couple years and we can talk about it then.
And I know you've seen some of my other interviews, so you'll know I'm going to ask you, do you have a library card?
Oh, of course. Yeah, I think I have it in my wallet. I could.
Well,
you want me to show you?
I'll believe you.
Okay.
That you have it.
Yes.
Of course. Well, that is a wrap-up of our interview. Thank you so much again for coming. I wish you all the success in the world with All Mixed Up. And, of course, I hope to see you again next time when you have another book out, and then maybe we can make this happen again.
Thank you, Noelle.
Yeah.
Your support means a lot. Thank you.
Thank you again for coming. And thank you all for watching this episode of A Novel Idea. We'll see you again next time.